our own suffering condition is completely illusory. It's fake news. That is somehow our mind is tricking us to believe that this is all true, but it is not true at all.
Hello, and welcome to Life with a Lama Healer. So glad you could join us. And today I'm very, very honored to have as our guest Francesco Prevosti, who lives in Italy and I've been a longtime friend of Francesco's, traveled to many places around the world with him and Lama Gangchen, and really, really thrilled to have him on our show today. Francesco's had the really great fortune of devoting his entire life to the spiritual path. And he's played a pivotal role in establishing several Buddhist centers, including the renowned Lama Tsong Khapa Institute in Pomaia, Italy, the Nalanda Monastery in France, and the Albagnano Healing Meditation Centre in Albagnano, Italy. And his spiritual path began in the 1970s when he studied with many of the great Tibetan masters who came out of Tibet, including the Dalai Lama, Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa, and of course, Lama Gangchen Rinpoche, who he traveled with and worked with for many, 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 many years. Francesco was Lama's translator. He translated into English, Italian, French, and sometimes Portuguese. And Lama Gangchen called him his computer because he had this incredible ability to translate Rinpoche's broken English. He understood exactly what Rinpoche wanted to communicate and was able to, elaborate and to expand and really share with us these precious messages. So Francesco is a Dharma teacher, a translator. He's also an astrologer and an accomplished photographer. He was a monk for many years, and he'll share his journey of being a monk, and now he's a layperson. And really, his presence is the embodiment of inner calm and equanimity. So please join me in welcoming Francesco Prevosti. We're really excited about this podcast about the life of the great Tibetan Lama, Lama Gangchen Tulku Rinpoche, who was born in 1941 in Tibet and trained by many of the greatest Tibetan masters. He traveled to the West in the 1980s, bringing with him the inner peace teachings of the Buddha. Lama was one of the greatest living humanitarians and spiritual masters of our time, and part of an unbroken lineage dating all the way back 2,500 years to Shakyamuni Buddha. So our vision in creating this podcast is really to preserve and share the remarkable stories about Lama Gangchen's extraordinary life. We'll interview senior students and longtime followers who worked with Lama Gangchen, traveled with him, studied with him, witnessed and experienced his incredible healings and miracles. So these stories, they're really precious jewels and inspire us to really see what's possible when we follow the inner peace teachings of the Buddha. So it's a real honor and privilege to bring these stories to you and the methods that really help us to reframe our sufferings, which brings us more inner calm, the ability to be more in the present moment with less stress and anxiety and fear, and to, experience more joy in our life and more peaceful in our life and more meaning really in our life. So please stay tuned for our conversations from this very, very rich spiritual heritage coming out of Tibet and the incredibly joyful, inspiring, mind-blowing, funny, touching stories about the remarkable life of a Lama healer, our beloved Lama Gangchen. Life with a Lama healer. Welcome to the show, Francesco.
Thank you, Leila. I'm very happy to be here and to have this opportunity to tell you a little bit about my experiences with Lama Gangchen.
Please, could you tell us, how did you meet Lama Gangchen?
It was 1985, and I was a Buddhist monk already from 79. And it was a quite difficult period because many of the lamas that we used to know and enjoy passed away, starting from Kyabje Trijang Dorje Chang, who passed away in 1981, But then many like Kyabje Son Rinpoche and Sergon Rinpoche and Lama Yeshe and Gomotulku and so many had left the body in a kind of short time. And then Lama Gangchen arrived, and it was so powerful, so strong. And I was at that time in Lama Tsong Khapa Institute in Pomaia. Pomaia is in Tuscany, a very beautiful place. So Lama Gangchen came there, was in 1985. I don't remember the season, but it was summertime, I remember. And I was into taking pictures. So one of my first connection with Lama Gangchen was through taking pictures. I remember one time in the courtyard of Pomaia of Lama Tsong Khapa Institute, I took a picture of him, and a big round sun, like round light, came exactly on his forehead. And I know many times in photos there are things that comes because of the lenses, but that one I could never explain. Anyway, what happened is I had a professional camera. I printed a big poster of him on the throne with the hat. So when I went to visit him, I presented it with this poster, and we were so happy. Now all around, even in Tibet, there are some of my photos. And because I used to print a lot and give to him, we got connected through that.
And some quality in his aura was so big that he was really a good subject for taking pictures.
Yeah, every picture was fine
Incredible.
with him. I still have many, is not in digital form, but I've taken picture of the printed photos in digital.
What I love about your photos, Francesco, is you have captured Rinpoche in lots of non-formal settings. You really catch his personality. They're so beautiful, the photos.
That was my fun at the time, although I was a monk, I was into photograph. And what happens is after I met him, there is a story that I like to relate every time, because he was sitting on the throne where Lama Yeshe used to sit, and Lama Yeshe had passed away already. And I thought his presence there, and even his look, was very much like Lama Yeshe. The only thing that I could not fit in my mind was his beard. So he had a big beard. So I remember he was looking at me, and he covered his beard. I have a photo of that with him covering, because I was thinking that I don't like so much that beard, because otherwise it's very similar to, and I remember him covering his beard and looking at me. So this was one of the first nice stories that I like to relate about him. I'm not surprised about Lama having a lot of powers and a lot of capacities, but still this story I still relate. He had so much energy. Lama Gangchen Rinpoche was so powerful in many ways that when connection with him was for health mostly, because I was quite frail, I was quite weak in health. So I already traveled to India and Nepal, but I was often sick because my health has never been so good. When I met him, really the effect was that he was really energizing a lot. So Lama Gangchen Rinpoche is considered a manifestation of Vajrapani, which is the spiritual power of all the Buddhas. So somehow it was really true that the effect of his power on me was really to energize a lot. So what happened is that I was part of the FPMT organization somehow. I was not living in Tuscany at that time, but in another center, Lama Tsong Khapa Center in the north of Italy. But then anyway, somehow there was a big trip to Tibet. Tibet was starting to be open to tourism. So the FPMT organized a big trip to Tibet, but nobody kind of told me about that. Lama Gangchen actually told me, please, you buy a portable video camera. And then so I actually organized myself with 2 reflex camera, 1 portable camera, 1 video camera. It was his first going back to Tibet. It was really incredible for me because it was the first time traveling to the East and having a lot of energy. I could serve as a photographer in a very good way. It was me and Franco with 2 video cameras, because at the time it was not common to have all this equipment. Nowadays, everybody's taking photo with a cell phone. At the time, it was quite expensive because you had to print all the photos that you were making. But I've been doing that work a lot in the course of the year, traveling with Lama Gangchen in many countries. And Tibet was particularly good for photo opportunities because at the time it was not so much globalization like now. So you could see still Tibetan with their own traditional dress. Nowadays, there's a lot of T-shirt from the West. Lama Gangchen left Tibet in 1963. It was his first return to Tibet after that many years. He was so energetic. At the time, not many Lama had visited Tibet. So for the Tibetan people to have a Lama coming there was incredible. So what was happening is there was no cell phone, but people got messages all over the villages around. And when we were coming by car to go to different places, we used to meet a lot of groups of people with kata, stopping Rinpoche for blessing, lot of people. It was incredible, the number of people that appeared around the mountain and in Gangchen Labran in Kathmandu. So it was really a great opportunity to see Tibet awakening after many difficult years. So it was a special time, also this opportunity of meeting Panchen Lama.
Wow, what was he like?
Panchen Lama was larger than life. He was really a person eating a lot and speaking loudly and very incredible, strong presence. Many times this manifestation of Amitabha in the world, there must be some reason why they are very big, strong, and so it was a particular emotion to meet him. And also that we could have the opportunity to be present in the initiation in Shigatse, Amitabha's initiation, and we went to visit his palace. When we went to his palace, there was this tantric dances, but with the monks dressing in warrior dress. It was looking a little bit like Shambhala warrior. He was very close to Lama Gangchen Rinpoche, Panchen Lama. At some point, when we were coming back from the Lamolazzo, so Lamolazzo Lake is a lake of 5,000 meter altitude, and it was a holy lake where you could see the future and many things. And in the case of certain Lama, like the Dalai Lama, they go to check on the lake what appears when they search
Kind of like
for,
an oracle.
yeah, an oracle lake connected to Palden Lama, who is the protector of Tibet. Anyway, it was a very difficult trip to go there. Some people got hurt. It was a very adventurous trip. We were traveling with a bus, but it was very strange. Many times the road was blocked for water or stones. And Lama Gangchen was the first one coming down the bus and taking the stone out. It was very physically really strong, not only powerful, spiritual. So he really was the one who gave strength and also gave faith. Quite incredible to travel like that. But through the power of the impossible became possible.
I've been to Tibet 3 or 4 times, and it's physically demanding. When I started to go, there were more roads and a little more electricity, some running water, especially in the hotels that we stayed in. But when you went, it was even more physically demanding. But what's incredible that you said before you met Lama Gangchen, you didn't really have the energy to do a trip like that. But then you did afterwards. And
I never traveled to Tibet before, but I traveled to India, to Nepal, many places, and always I was somehow losing energy and getting quite weak and sick. But that trip with Lama Gangchen in Tibet was really amazing because I could run, I could do it, so it was really nice. And then, of course, I have many photos, and it was an amazing experience. But Lama Gangchen also he brought some people that were not really Buddhist. Like in the beginning, we used to count the Hindu group from Babaji, Airakam Baba. So there was some of people coming from this kind of tradition. And Lama Gangchen, so he was very open. He didn't come as a Buddhist teacher. He came as a healer. Somehow he was open to meet anyone.
when the time that you were there, Rinpoche healed you and your energy, but did you witness any healings in those early days in Tibet that Rinpoche healed people?
Sure, Rinpoche was doing a lot. First of all, he was going to Tibet. He was carrying a lot of money to give to people. So every kind of person coming there to ask blessing, Rinpoche also used to give money. And I witnessed this different type of healing. Even getting the blessing, the hand blessing for them is like a healing. But in other places like Malaysia, we used to go every year to Malaysia. In Malaysia, there is a lot of black magic. So Rinpoche used to heal in very strange way because sometimes they had possession from spirits. So Rinpoche was powerful in that. And one of the things that I used to tell a lot in my teachings, when Lama Gangchen arrived in Tibet, Tibet was full of spirits because there was a lot of violent killings and many monks, many lamas. And plus, near Gangchen, near the Gangchen Monastery, there was the Sakya Monastery. In the Sakya Monastery, they used to have a prison for spirits. It's strange to say that. They had a special room. There was spirits that were very harmful. They couldn't maybe eliminate completely, but they could take and put into this particularly shrine room where the spirits were imprisoned there. So when the Cultural Revolution and all this happening, all these spirits got again free to damage people. So the energy was quite heavy around Tibet in different places. When Lama Gangchen arrived in his previous monastery, what happened is that they organized a big fire puja for Lama Gangchen because he was known as a great tantric Lama. So they say, okay, now we need to purify the place because a lot of killings, a lot of problems.
Yeah, during the Cultural Revolution.
Yeah. So what happened is that they programmed this fire puja. Fire puja means that Lama, in the aspect of the deity, transformed the fire into the wisdom fire and then calls these spirits to be burned, their own spirit body to be burned in the fire, but then their mind is being projected to a better rebirth. So this is the technique for the Lama. So Lama sitting on the throne in front of a big fire. And that kind of
transforming
kind of fire puja is to somehow liberate the places from these energies, but also to save the continuum of mind. The day before, two medium arrived, one old lady and one young lady. And what happened is that those spirits were coming into those medium and introducing themselves. Oh, I'm sad, like to say, suppose Samten Lundrup, a monk that was killed in this place, and I'm here and I want to help. Other type of female or male spirits appearing, every time introducing themselves and speaking with a different voice. The tone of the voice was quite different. And they were all quite afraid. And they were saying, oh, I want to stay, I want to help. But the problem, even if a spirit have wish to help, their own connection with human being is not particularly good. So it's quite damaging. So that's why they try to send them to other type of rebirth. But anyway, they were quite scared. So all these spirits' energy coming from these two ladies were very much suffering energy. Then at the end, the Deva, we call angel here in our culture, but Deva is the Sanskrit word for they call Hla also in Tibetan. Anyway, there was a protector Deva of the place in that area. That area is very dry. And in the past life, Panchen Sampotashi, not Panchen Sampotashi, Kanchen Sapenla, the immediate previous incarnation of Lama Gangchen, came there with a stick. And he actually beat the stick on the floor in some point, and the water gushed out. So he discovered a source of water there. So there was now a little oasis. Rinpoche was saying it's like the moon, the face of the moon. There was no nature, but there is this oasis where the water came out with still the source of water. And there is the angel protecting the place, this Deva protecting the place. So he came also inside the lady, but his own way of speaking was completely, he was singing, the tone of the voice was very blissful. It was completely different way. Actually, this is all on video, so we have all this. And then the next day, of course, they were somehow liberated to other better rebirth.
So that was your first time witnessing something like that, right? So what was that experience like for you, being a Westerner?
I was a monk, so I had a lot of faith into the lamas and the dharma. So it was not a problem to fit into my mind that there was spirit. I was believing in all those kind of things. So for me, the experience was the experience from somebody who was already inside the framework of what Buddhism is all about, and specifically Tibetan Buddhism as a kind of typical approach, because in the past, in India, we used to have all these monastic university, and then at some point, because of foreign invasion, they were somehow wiped out. There was a lot of killings of monks, destroying the Nalanda temple. So they all had to escape. Tibet was an escape route, but the Indian considered Tibet a place of spirits. So there was a lot of spirits in Tibet. There was one monk, Sangharakshita, who tried to build up the first temple of Samye in Tibet, but this spirit created a lot of obstacles. When they built in the night, then the spirit destroyed the temple, so they couldn't do much. At that time, they had to call this very powerful, born in Afghanistan man, to subjugate. Spirits can be turned sometime to the Dharma protector, because somehow they can take a vow in front of the Lama and then become useful for the Dharma, or they have to be eliminated or imprisoned. There are many place where sometimes they get imprisoned in rocks. So when we do working in the land, nowadays here we've been doing a lot of work, all this kind of thing, because there could be entity that comes out from place or that can be disturbed. That's why we have all the time monks and lamas coming here. We do the Ramnechemo soon. There will be this great blessing ceremony because there is a lot of energy being moved. So sometimes it has to be pacified. So the ritual of the spirit could be pacification, where overpowering their energy, or the wrathful way to completely destroy their ordinary spirit body in this, but which is not only destroying, but also send their mind to a better place.
So I have witnessed the building of this temple in the last 5 years and all the energy that goes into the blessing, asking permission of the insects or the animals that live here, and being so respectful for the energies and the other beings that dwell here before we got here, before the center was built, and this respect and the constant energy and prayers and puja that goes into creating in a harmonious environment. And in a Western way, when we want to build a house, we just build the house. We break ground, we pour the cement. We don't even think about who's lived there before, other beings in the subtle realm, or the insects or the animals. And it's just so conscious. I think this is something that I think our listeners would really be interested in. There's so much care taken in the Buddhist tradition to respecting the environment and all the beings that live there, not only that the beings that we can see, but those that we can't see, in the animal realm too. Francesco is really talking about this respect that is part of the tradition.
Yes, Lama Gangchen Rinpoche used to say that if you don't do that, if you build a house without taking care of the entities that somehow protect the land there or somehow living in the land there, then many bad happenings living in the house. I had this experience when I was a child. Inside the house, there was a lot of problems, disharmony between my parents, between people coming to work there, a lot of problems. So I believe really, if you don't take care of pacifying the energy and taking care of the environment, when you build a land, when you build a house, then there could be a lot of bad happenings inside. Yeah. Lama Gangchen was all the time these astrological practices that he used to do and environment practice and making offering. We do this sog offering every day. Every time we do the sog, we need to think about the weaker beings around or the spirits or any kind of entities and offer the part of the ritual of the song is also offering to them, to do these entities, again, to avoid the bad connection with us. Many people, they talk a lot about nagas. Snake is the outer manifestation of nagas, but nagas belong to the spirit, so that they are kind of spirit, can manifest as frog or snakes. So there are many stories about killing snake. Near a school, there was a chapel with a snake. So because of the kids, they thought to protect the kid, they killed the snake. When they killed the snake, the kids start to be possessed by a naga. So they start to throw themselves on the floor and do like movements, like snake movement. All the kids in the school, they start to have this problem. And then even people coming to the village traveling. So they had to ask, this was Hindu, from a Hindu tradition, they had to ask some yogi to come and do rituals. There was all this story that I was following on the newspaper. So anyway, in the East, whenever airplane accident in Nepal, sometime it happens. And sometime after that, villages get disturbed. So they call their own, mostly Hindu in that case, because sometimes places need to be freed from this kind of disturbing energy. So we are here in this huge Dharma center, but this place was inhabited by ancient cults in the past. So the druids are like a Stonehenge. So there are many energies there. So we need to take care. And every time you move a part of the land, because you need to build whatever, you need to do a lot of prayers. So that's why this time there are almost 100 monks and 100 lamas, qualified monks. But we have been having these rituals in the past a lot. Rinpoche was himself. We did a lot of fire pujas. So Rinpoche, somehow he was a teacher since his own reputation. He was a powerful, not only healer, but also for all these tantric rituals. So he was called to do this. It is actually somehow promoting the harvest and promoting the weather. So all these rituals are there in the scriptures. So not all the Lama can do that,
He was very special.
He was very well known. Monasteries, big monastery, they used to do this ritual every year. I have many photos of him during these fire pujas. One time I remember this was incredible for me. There was a photo of him after a fire puja with the fire on his back with a mudra, this kind of hugging mudra with the vajra and bell and with the hair, yellow hair. And on the back, this fire had the complete aspect of Yamantaka. It was really, this photo exists. You can really see Yamantaka perfectly.
In the fire.
It was really one of the most amazing pictures that I ever did for me, because it was really Yamantaka. When this fire puja are done, and then you take particular photos and something comes out. It was really amazing for me, this Yamantaka manifestation on the back of Lama Gangchen.
Yeah. I love this word awe. And I've asked this question from some of our other guests. I love this word awe. And everyone says that they had so many moments of awe, with Lama Gangchen. Can you share another story that you just like, wow, this is the moment of awe?
Many moments of surprise and joy, particularly the energy of Lama Gangchen was joy. Many times we saw rainbow, not only a normal rainbow, but rainbow around the moon, around the sun. I remember one time in one of the first retreat in Borobudur, we came with a full moon, and incredible rainbow around the moon that night. So many things happened. One time we were in one of the holy places in China, and the sun came back. Somehow we could see the sun. It was setting, and then could see it coming back. The connection between the Mahasiddhas and the nature and the environment is quite peculiar. So somehow they can interact with phenomenon in a different way. In all tradition, there have been miracles and people who can do that because they have a different perception of reality. Somehow, if you can see reality in the energetic form that is more true than the gross form that we see, because with energy, reality is made of atom moving and changing constantly. We see something quite static. So the master can relate to the energetic aspect of phenomenon. That's why they can do many particular things. Giving energy to the elements, because the elements now are quite weak. One of the things that happened with Lama Gangchen, there were people coming with instrument to measure energies. So they used to measure an apple before it was blessed and after Lama Gangchen blessing to the apple. And the energy was completely like a auric energy of the apple, and that they could measure the amount of energy. There are microwaves. If you put food in microwave, when you do this measurement, the food loses a lot of power.
The food loses power.
Food loses power, yeah. When the Lama give blessing and energizing the food, or even ourselves through mantras, the medicine Buddha mantra, whatever mantra we blow on the water, on the food. In Tibet, they used to heal themselves with mantras. Sometimes they couldn't have medicine available, so they used to retire the money. A lot of time they blow on the water. So it changes a lot the values, the energetical values of the water or the fruit or whatever food you eat. So this is also very important.
It's actually a really good practice, especially now since our environment is so degraded and we have so many chemicals in our food and in the soil, to actually do the mantra on our food to energize it, right? Yeah. Can you tell us another practical way that we could be using this kind of energy?
Every time you eat, like this is a tradition, always when you have food in front of you, you dedicate it, you purify it. So you can do many different rituals. Mostly we use the 3 syllables, the manifestation of the pure body of all Buddhas. The Ha is the manifestation of the pure speech, and the Hum is the manifestation of the pure mind. So these 3 syllables, white, red, and blue, are the one that have been used to re-energize and purify food or the offering you do on the altars and so on. So before eating, before having anything, you normally recite this Om Ahum and you visualize. First of all, you offer this food to the holy beings. Holy beings means also the beings that dwell inside our own body, that are different entities together with us. So anyway, we change the energy, we transform the energy of the food. And so this is also good for health. Even if you take medicines, you can do the same, you refine. There are people who do with Reiki. In all ancient culture, the blessing and offering of food. And it's not only religious ritual, it is also for health, because you connect with that energy. Even for people who eat maybe eggs or meat or fish, they also to help this being that is offering his body. This is also very good because it helps the continuity of mind of this being through the power of certain specific mantras and so on.
It's this taking care and this being so conscious of taking care. We were talking earlier about the care of building a building and all the beings around there. But then the food that we eat, how many of us we just eat for the sake of eating because we're hungry, or we eat because we like the taste of something, but we're not really blessing the food or paying attention to the energy of the food or really helping to transform the energy of the food so it gives us more health, more vitality. And actually, I'm just thinking of medicines. How many people taking medicines nowadays, either herbal medicine or whatever kind of medicine? We're just popping it in our mouth, hoping that it's going to help us for whatever our illness is or whatever our condition is. But we're not bringing that blessing energy to it, that we could actually do the Om and energize it so that it gives us more vitality or more health or transform our sickness. The care of Buddhism is so beautiful. And you don't have to be a Buddhist to practice being conscious and taking care.
This is the sense of the Nalso self-healing practice. For Lama Gangchen at first, when he came to the West, as many probably other people told about that, he didn't want to come as a Dharma teacher because he said there are many other Dharma teachers and I want to come to show the power of spirituality and of Tantra. And so he came as a healer to help people to heal. And he was using also Tibetan medicines in the beginning, but then he decided to transform this energy into a practice, which is the Nalso self-healing practice. That is also very effective because it's based on all the 5 main figures in the Tantric tradition. If you go to Nepal, these 5 Dhyani Buddhas depicted on the top of all the houses. It was an incredible tradition. If you go to the ancient places in Nepal, and all the stupa have got the 5 Dhyani Buddha images, Varochana, Amitabha, Akshobhya, Nasambhava, Mogasiddhi. So everywhere you see these 5 figures. But somehow because we practice Tara and Vajrapani and Manjushri and Kalachakra, Chakrasamvara, Yamantaki, then sometime, I think one of the great things that Lama Gangchen did was bringing back the Dharma to the roots, where it is coming from. So, for example, Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Shakyamuni So, Lama Gangchen, each patient received this mantra as a healing mantra because the figure of Buddha is fundamental. In the Tibetan tradition, they have so many different Kagyupa and other traditions that were there in Tibet before that. We are all depending on Buddha Shakyamuni teaching. And in the West, we can also forget about that. So it's very important. And I think this Lama Gangchen Rinpoche message to bring back the essence on Buddha Shakyamuni figure, the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, because Lama Gangchen was saying, in our Gompa, we have so many different deities and historical beings and 1,000 Buddhas and so on. But they all say each of those goes back to refer to one of the 5 families of the Dhyani Buddhas, So the 5 Dhyani Buddhas are the real basis of all tantric practice. So the self-healing take the essence of all the Tantra in a form that can be practiced also for healing by normal people. This was the intention of Lama Gangchen, to offer it to anybody who wanted to heal himself or herself.
Chunga Chempo Daini,
Shona Chempo Daini,
Semjen Dunga Tarjisho,
Fenchen Duna Tajisho,
Kawacho Samieso,
Kaba Cheva Sangesho,
Chodan Zinji Shuju,
Shoda Zinji Shogyuchi. Great sound of Dharma, eliminate the suffering of sentient beings. May it uphold the meaning of Dharma for inconceivable eons to come.
Damarani, the Parani, the Sambarani, the Sama
Buddha Chitta Kutsalini Prana Parana, the Sabhava Benta Satarindaya Santo Kane Ho 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 Ho. So
Lama, he would give us one of the supreme healers as our maybe a best friend. Who is your supreme healer?
there's actually many initiation you can get different ones, but I mostly receive Vairochana as a main one. I still have my first card with
me
Vairochana. Some Dhyani Buddha never came out so much to me. With some I have more connection. This is a special way, to connect with your own. We are all somehow potentially Buddhas, and we have a basis of purity, each one of us, no matter what we did in our life, no matter how much obscure we could be now, and our basis of mind is completely pure. So these supreme healer Dhyani Buddhas help us to reconnect with our basic energy. We can say samsara, our own suffering condition, is completely illusory. It's fake news. That is somehow our mind is tricking us to believe that this is all true, but it is not true at all. So when you realize the ultimate nature of phenomena, you can see that it was all the time fake. But really, the real fake news was samsara things.
Say a little more about that, especially for our listeners who maybe this is a new concept.
Yeah, because Eastern culture is based on the idea that what we see is not reality. That's why meditation was born. Not that meditators want to relax, like nowadays many yoga center. Or in the past, Lama Gangchen used to say this inner science. Why science? Because the meditator, the yogis, used to search for the real nature of phenomena. When Buddha 2,500 years ago said that the phenomena are made of moving cells, moving atoms. So he explained that what we see as concrete and is changing any moment because it's made of particles. So this is could see directly through his mind, not because he had any technological device to see that. The transformation of the mind and making the mind subtler and subtler, you can see the real nature of what surrounds them. And at the end, you discover that it is all somehow fabricated by the mind. This is also there, in a way, even in Hindu tradition, have this kind of idea of the Maya, they call the illusory nature of what we see. So projections, projection, or even in this room, there are many insects now. Each of the beings around us see reality in a different way, In our own culture where we are born, in the Western culture, we give the false impression that there is a reality there, same for everyone. In the East, they don't think in the same way. They see reality as a personal projection of our own. So somehow each one of us has his own special way of seeing color or seeing form. Even when we were a child, and now, and I'm almost 70, my way of seeing reality is completely different from when I was a child. Because the senses changing, the mind changes. You say, and if you meditate deeply, you can go somehow to cut through this illusion. This is the sense of actually liberation from samsara comes when you go and try and discover the real nature of phenomena, both of yourself, our own person, our own being, and the outer phenomena. Normally speaking, there is the most used way is the first you dissolve the sense of the I, the self, which is the basic of all our suffering. Once you discover the fact that this is just a projection of the mind, again, then also other outer phenomena dissolve and all your sufferings. But of course, you need to study a lot to understand well. That's why Lama Michel Rinpoche is so helpful, because he had very great knowledge of all this philosophical basis of this possibility of understanding the real nature of it.
Or when you started practicing meditation, or when you first became a monk, what did that open up for you in your life when you started to see that everything was a projection and an illusion?
First of all, it gave me faith, the teaching of the Buddha somehow, to experience it directly somehow what the Buddha teaches, which is not happening so often. But anyway, even if it happens one time, like they say, it shatters the building of samsara. This is what's happening in your mind. To have a real faith in the Dharma, you need to have some kind of experience of what the Buddha basic teaching was. Of course, in Buddhism, we have bodhicitta, we have compassion and love. Some people tend to think that Buddhism is only about wisdom, but really the love and compassion that you are supposed to develop in Buddhism, the basis for bodhicitta, relative bodhicitta, is so a great form of love for each of the sentient beings. But then we have the wisdom part, which is also very important, because all our problem is built up by us. And because in the West, our reality is not so problematic. If you go to poor country where people every day need to struggle for their life, then they don't have so much time to ask themselves, who am I, what I'm doing here? And they don't have so much time to create psychological problems. In the West, we have so many psychologists, many mental problems, and because we don't have concrete problem to face every day, so we create a culture where people clouded the mind by confusion and doubt, and of course anger and lust and jealousy and envy and pride and all these kind of problems. These are all created by the mind. So somehow simplicity is the basis of the Buddhist culture. You need to go back to a simple being, because it is in simplicity that you find the real nature of yourself and all phenomenon. That's why we are so complicated that to see the simple nature of reality is quite a problem.
So is that one of the reasons why you became a monk? This simplicity?
It was even before I started studying Buddhism in books. In 1973, maybe. So I was in school. I was 16 when I started to read books about spirituality. And to find a book about dharma and spirituality was quite rare. Nowadays, there are so many offerings, even online, of course. But at the time, you need to go to search for books. And one of the most inspiring books at the time for me was the book of Beatrice Lane Suzuki, who is the wife of Professor Suzuki, who was a great scholar in Japan. His book was full of faith and full of simple presentation of the Bodhisattva life. And it was very inspiring for me, because a lot of nice information, inspiring quotes from the holy text. This I remember was one of the best book I read. And one of the most significant was also Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism from Trungpa Rinpoche. Very opening for my mind. It's very powerful.
How old were you when you actually became a monk?
So my family was quite powerful in the town where I was born, because they were rich and they were quite traditional type. So for me, I was already a little bit mad because I manifested quite a lot of madness at that time. It was easier for me to get away. Since they couldn't do much about me, then they let me go. So when I was 21, I left to go to Tuscany. And when I arrived in Lama Tsong Khapa Institute, which now is very famous Buddhist center in Italy, I think I was the first person coming from outside, the first rest, because there is a group of founder of Lama Tsong Khapa Institute, and some were already there. But the first person coming from out of nowhere was me.
How did you know that was even there?
Because in Italy we had some underground magazine we call Renudo, with the Naked King, the name of the magazine. It was an underground publication at that time. And so they start to speak about spirituality and these kind of things. So at some point I was working, I saw this announcement that the Buddhist center was going to open there. They had a small center in Milan at the time, so I went to meet them. So I left my house. I was hitchhiking, actually. The 2nd of May of 1977 that I arrived there. And then I became a monk. At that time, Buddhism was not a fashion. Nobody knew about Tibetan Buddhism specifically.
Yeah, and you grew up Catholic, right?
I was in a Catholic family. I have a certain faith for the Virgin Mary. I go often to Christian holy places. I like very much. But Buddhism was not well seen. I was in the group of people mostly from the extreme left. So when I left to go to the spiritual place, they completely gave up on me, because this is completely. So it was not at all appreciated, neither by my family, neither by my friends. So I had to leave all of them. I had some kind of faith from previous life, because of some connection. Even I didn't choose Tibetan Buddhism specifically. It was just the karmic connection that I had was with that. But I didn't do a rational choice. Somehow happened to draw me inside this. And so then I became a monk in 79. Then we start traveling to the east, to India. Lama Yeshe used to organize this dharma celebration in India and Nepal. We were the first group of Western Buddhist monks. We were 80. meeting in places like Bodh Gaya and Dharamsala. So for the Buddhist practitioner to see many Western monks and many Western Buddhists was a kind of surprise.
First
You know,
time
wow,
you
it's
see
to say,
that,
wow,
right.
wow.
And tell us about that decision of when you decided you wanted to become a monk. What was that like?
It was natural because we were very strongly motivated because we were going really against the normal mainstream. So it was really somehow natural when you were living that kind of life. I was very romantic, actually. I used to like women a lot. And I was falling in love a lot all my life. I used to fall in love a lot. So it was not particularly an easy decision to renounce.
Well, growing up in Italy, love is a big priority.
Yes. But somehow, I think I was fit for monk life. It was a very good idea for me. Even when I decided to give back after 13 years, I decided to become lay again. But Lama Gangchen, for other people, he didn't mind. But for me, he tried to push me to stay. So I stayed 2 years more than I decided. And actually, it would have been better probably for me to remain as a monk. Although I had a good life, I still kept on doing the same things in Dharma Center. But I think for my structure of body and mind is more fit to the monk world. And I never was into making a real structured life with a family and with children. It was quite terrifying, the idea for me.
So it's you're renouncing family life and normal everyday life that many people have. But it's also a commitment, isn't it? A commitment to develop oneself spiritually. And it's 100% you're committing your whole life to that, isn't it?
In Buddhism, the monks' vows are made to be kept inside the monk community. And if you live outside the monk community, most of the Buddhist monks or nuns in the West give back the vows. Even one of my first teachers, Geshe Champa Seng, he was a very famous Geshe in all the monastery of Tibet. He completed his study in Tibet. When he was sent to the West, he was in Rome taking care of the ISMEO, the Institute for the Medium and Oriental Studies Institute, anyway, that was founded by Giuseppe Tucci, who was a famous Italian explorer that went to Tibet and collected a lot of material, like books and artifacts. So this Geshe, this Lama, was sent to Italy to take care of all this material, to make catalogs and so on. And when he arrived, he said, I cannot live with other monks. Monks and nuns do every 15 days do a ritual of purification of the vow together with the community. So if you don't have the community, it's very difficult to keep all these commitments. So once I started not to be anymore living with a community of monks and nuns, then it was really quite difficult.
I see.
So I decided to get back. Plus, I was romantic, so I used to fall in love. And as long as you are with monks, I was living in Nalanda Monastery in France for some years. And this was the community that Lama Yeshe created in the south of France. After Pomaia, was the monks that were living in Pomaia, most of them were sent to this monastery that was started. There was quite difficult because the building was very cold and the organization for my health was not particularly easy. And also we was really starting. There was no Geshe yet to teach. So it was quite a difficult experience also. But I stayed there for 3-4 years anyway. I also was the only one from the Westerners there speaking French because I studied a lot of French in school. So it was a little bit helpful also because it was mostly American Canadians and some French monks were there, but not so many.
So you studied with many lamas. You've been around some of the great lamas, Lama Yeshe and many others when you first went to Pomaia. But what was it about Lama Gangchen that was so unique?
Yeah, this I may quote Venerable Sangasena, an incredibly dedicated monk who created many schools in Ladakh. And he was coming to our group in Kathmandu and Borobudur. He used to like Lama Gangchen a lot. And the reason he explained why, say, I met many lamas, but it was all the time a little bit formal, a little bit stiff. And with Lama Gangchen, it was like meeting an old friend every time. It was so joyful, so easy to connect. So this was one of the special quality of Lama Gangchen. People could connect. And one of the things that impressed me about him, that was really personally taking care of each problem of each people could have, problem with money, problem with health. He really took on him the responsibility of that. Recently, I heard about a saint that was living not long ago in Padova. He died maybe 50 years ago. Anyway, this man was a great saint that every time anybody was going to him, he was saying, "No, don't worry, I take on my shoulder your burden." So Lama Gangchen was like that. You really feel that you could entrust your problem to him and he could solve it, not only taking the problem on himself, but he could really solve your problem. So I had a lot of improvement in the connection with my family, in my economical situation. My family was rich, but I really was getting nothing from. I mean, I was supported, but really little money. When I met Lama Gangchen, he really taught me how to take care of myself, how to take care of my economies, how to take care of my life in general, the relation with my family, improving. My father passed away 1.5 months ago. And I was surprised because in his testament, he was never religious, he was never spiritual, he never liked my choice. He had to accept because he saw that I was getting much better than when I was living with him, you know. But still, he left a big inheritance to the center here also. Yeah. I was very happy about that because during his life, he never helped so much. You know? Lama Gangchen involved him. And in the last year of his life, he was always asking me about Lama Michel. And of course, he came here when we inaugurated the center in the land. And when he passed away, strangely enough, I was sick. I had a flu. So I couldn't go to meet him in the last year of his life. Was living maybe 3 hours by car. So Lama Michel had to go instead of me and Gabriella and Max. And so Lama Michel was the one who saw his body when he passed away. And I went to this funeral afterward. Also, when he passed away, a lot of Lama came to know immediately. So for sure, although he was not at all spiritual, he never prayed in his life, he did nothing to promote his own mind after that. But still, I think he got a lot of help.
Yes.
So,
wow. Your father, he wasn't a Buddhist. He wasn't spiritual at all. But Lama still took care of him when he left his body.
Somehow the connection with my father improved a lot. And even the economical situation for me, the year I've been living with Lama Gangchen, because everything was quite expensive, traveling. And also sometime I was driving for him here and there. So I had to have a good car, and all of it was coming from my family. But before meeting Lama Gangchen, I was never asking things because it was very difficult for me to ask. And so I was living with the help of my family, but with little. Then Lama Gangchen somehow helped me to overcome this kind of connection with my family, and my life became better.
So how many years have you been following and studying and teaching the Dharma with Lama?
With Lama, I met Lama Gangchen in 1985. Then after the trip to Tibet, I started to become his translator. So I did many years translating for him. First, he was traveling at the beginning around many centers in the West. So he made me translate from his English. Actually, in the last year of his life, I think he could made himself understand very well in English. But he was not confident that people could understand his English. So I had to translate for him in English, and then in Italian, and sometime in French, and sometime in Portuguese. In some occasion, especially the famous meeting with the grandmother and grandfather of Lama Michel. Lama Gangchen used to tell a lot this story, because when Lama Michel decided to go to the monastery, to live in a monastery, both the grandfather and grandmother from the father's side and the grandmother from the mother's side was shocked, because there was a kid
Where is he going?
leaving school and going to an Indian monastery, was very strange. So we had to have a meeting with me translating and Lama Gangchen speaking to them. And I had to translate in Portuguese that time.
So you were the messenger of that Lama Michel would be going to India.
We had to explain the reason for that. Quite strong people, also rich families, and quite strong, quite powerful. So for Lama Gangchen very often relate these stories, because it was also for him not so easy to explain. But so I did all this translating here and there.
Lama Gangchen used to call Francesco his computer because he had this ability to take what Lama's message was in his broken English and elaborate and deepen it and give us this incredible Dharma teaching.
Another strange story that Lama Zopa Rinpoche was my main teacher in FPMT.
Okay.
And I used to translate for him in Italian. And he used to speak for 1 hour and a half. So I had to write down everything and then translate it. So I trained very well to translate. Anyway, when Lama Zopa Rinpoche left his body, 2 days after, my father also passed away. So it was quite also touching because it was the same time as Lama Zopa was my root gurus.
Francesco, if you could say 3 qualities that were really special about Lama Gangchen, what would those 3 qualities be?
One of these qualities is the patience. Every Lama was amazed by his own dealing with people because most of his followers were not Buddhist, more formal Dharma practitioners. They were mostly patients. So as patients, they have a lot of mind troubles and mood swings. And so he had an incredible forbearance to really deal with all these sometimes strange or unbalanced people. So this was one of the qualities that was mostly appreciated by other lamas too. And another thing that other lamas used to point out, they used to say, oh, when we go to teach in Dharma Center, we have a fixed time. After 1 hour and a half, people get bored. Even if we don't finish, they get up and go. But with Lama Gangchen, they stay for hours. So this was one of the qualities also. Bodhicitta, when you really have the bodhicitta mind, then somehow you create such an atmosphere of warmth and tenderness that people are naturally attracted. So Lama Gangchen really had this bodhicitta quality of making people comfortable and at ease, feeling like they were protected, they were in a comfy zone.
We wanted to be in his company.
He used to spend day and night, for example, on phone to Tibet. He used to spend an incredible amount of money because at that time there were no facilities with the cell phone to phone all around the world. Like now we can do video calls, but at the beginning, so they used to come incredible bills of phone call because he was passing sometime the night by speaking with people all over the world. And then he was sleeping in the throne. Sometimes he said, no, some Tibetan came to criticize me, but because I might wake all night, then I fall asleep in the throne and I never conceal anything from people. I'm always together with people. So people know everything about me. All the time there are people with me and I cannot prevent myself from somehow falling asleep. He didn't have a kind of specific schedule. Every day he was improvising and he was coming down. He just was coming, walking and talking with people. But the change that his presence was bringing to the center for many people was really great because it could help people to adapt. I must say that this group was very wonderful in reacting well on the passing away of Lama Gangchen. I've experienced the passing away of many lamas. Right. And sometimes group was not so easy to deal with his passing away because he was the one who was keeping all the organization. I was so involved in everything, like Lama Gangchen used to do. Here, I must say that the effect of his passing, many people say that his presence was felt even stronger when he passed away. So he can keep on and really they demonstrate a lot of devotion, especially in the tantric practice. The devotion to the spiritual guide is one of the main root of all the realization. And I've seen many people that really showed how much devotion they have, how much love they have for Lama Gangchen. Myself, I'm not good in that. So I really admire and rejoice even now on the podcast. I rejoice for these people who really have incredible love and devotion. Really admirable.
Yeah. Really showed how much he gave us and how we all stayed together. And in fact, all the Zoom meditations that we did, our group in the United States, every Sunday for 2 years, we were getting together. Of course, it was during the pandemic. And then Lama Caroline, all the Zoom classes we had, all the streaming. I felt many times that our community came together even more during the time that he passed away.
Of course, Lama Michelle. Yes. Rinpoche present, Lama Caroline, of course, they did a lot to keep the energy going, but without them, it would have been almost impossible. But the people, they showed that they really appreciate the message of Lama Gangchen and wanted to keep on with his own tradition.
Yeah, it's really inspiring. So I have one more question for you, Francesco. Given that you're an incredible Dharma teacher and you have so much years of experience and wisdom, if you could give some advice to other spiritual seekers, what advice would you give?
To be simple, in the West, we tend to build up personality according to what we are doing. If we are entrepreneurs, or sports people. We build up a personality out of that. And we are not supposed to build up an ego personality with the Dharma, but this is what sometimes people do. Become a great teacher. I want to be recognized as a Lama because now I have these qualities or I have these capacities. And I believe it's not such a good approach. In the West, I'm not talking only about Buddhism, but many people want to become teacher before having become disciples of somebody. They learn few things, they immediately want to teach, they want to give courses. And this is a little bit distorting. In the Dharma, we need to be very simple. We need to recognize our limits. We need to have faith in our own Buddha potential, but at the same time, we need to know that the path that Buddha followed is somehow really to appreciate really what a bodhisattva is and also to understand the level we are. So it is not so much to build up from the side of our ego. Otherwise, we go the opposite direction because the Dharma is meant to somehow destroy your own ego sense. And in the West, my concern sometimes, that's why I never accepted sitting on through Lama Gangchen, want me to call me Lama or sit on the throne. I never accepted because I was afraid of my ego. I'm here to destroy my own false idea of myself. If I start to get too much, I have the karma to be respected a lot, which is also a little bit tricky sometimes. If I'm put on a throne, I'm being called Lama, then I'm not a Lama. I always say when I go to teach, I'm not a Lama. I'm not able to guide. I don't consider I'm a Dharma teacher. I can explain what I've learned. I can share my experience, but I'm not a Lama. Because Lama means somebody who takes responsibility for other people to guide them to enlightenment. And you need to have a lot of courage, a lot of power, a lot of compassion and
Commitment.
love. A commitment. So in that sense, I don't deserve at all that kind of title. So that's why I think most people need to recognize the place they need to. Even in Lama Tsong Khapa Lamrim, we have 3 levels of motivation: the lower, the medium, the higher level. And to develop the higher level, you have to have the lower, the middle, and then you can reach the highest one. Here we use the term like bodhisattva and sangha very easily, which is nice. So you can say we are bodhisattva. But really, if you study well the path, then they say sometimes the Dharma should be mirroring you so that you understand at what level you really are in your own spiritual progress. We don't need to build up much pride. Be simple, recognize that we are also pure in our own basic approach. Don't hold so much on your own bad actions from the past. We all did a lot of bad actions, but you shouldn't somehow grasp so much in that. You need to give trust to your own inner purity and purify. Know that you can purify all your negative karma. So you need to profit this precious human life that you have to do that. You can purify all your karma. So you need to be confident that you can do it. But at the same time, don't build up wrong aspect of your mind through the dark, because this is in the Lojong teaching is explained very well. You can transform an angel into a devil. There is a phrase that sounds a little bit like that. So you need to be careful about that.
Yeah. So beautiful. So would love for you to close with a prayer or a dedication, something that you would like to say to everyone who's listening, and that this conversation be of benefit to everyone.
Yeah, of course. When I was coming to this room, I thought I need to do something to benefit, not for me, but for other people. As a Buddhist practitioner, once you decide who is your spiritual guide, then you need to take care about your mind remain pure. Lama Gangchen was also saying you start to listen to gossips. For nowadays, many gossips and many bad speech you can hear from people sometimes criticizing this, criticizing that. So you need to be a little bit protected, self-protecting yourself, self-protecting from all this kind of confusion that, and keep your mind pure. And so we dedicate also, of course, for the benefit of all beings, because nowadays also human beings are suffering a lot because of these 2 years of pandemics and all these kind of problems and wars. So Lama Gangchen, we started here the Guru Puja 11th of September 2001 when there was the Twin Tower attack. We started to do the Guru Puja every day because Lama Gangchen was saying now there is a great danger for wars and problems. So Then the pandemics in the last year, so many troubles we are undergoing. It's not an easy period of. When we practice the Dharma, each 15 days on the new moon and full moon, I give the Mahayana vows, which is a very powerful practice so that you really contribute to the balance or rebalance the environment, to avoid wars, to avoid natural disaster. Nowadays, they blame for the change of the weather because of human beings or because of sun rays or because, but really, people pray less, people practice less. In my opinion, the real cause of the trouble we are now facing in the world is because people lose the contact with spirituality, lose the contact with their own pure self. When we are all confused and we are all somehow inside negative patterns, we create a reality with our minds. So the more the negative minds of people, the more the world is going, of course, upside down. So the Dharma, of course, is meant for our future life and for continuity of mind, but also is meant to give a contribution to the world, not only the world, but the universe. We give our positive contribution, keeping our mind pure and doing our best with humility, with trying to treat people with kindness. And so whatever we can do, the first precept in Buddhism, if you cannot help, at least don't damage others, at least that. And so we dedicate, of course, all this podcast interview can be beneficial for many people because Lama Gangchen was saying, if they hear Lama's experience, they say, oh, but this is another world, another culture. But we are Westerners. You have been interviewing Franco and Simona and Fredo and so on. We are people with Western culture. We were born in the West and we had the Western culture. So it's somehow for people, we hope, we pray, we dedicate that people can benefit from this.
Yes. Could you close with one of your favorite prayers?
Okay,
yes,
okay.
that would be so beautiful.
Lama Sangye Drugyune Drawai Jigyam Malupa De Sala Gopasho Chanchu Sencho Rinpoche Makye Pana Kye Gyurechi Kye Panyam Pame Payam Gonde Gondu Pelaware Sho. May the precious body-mind, which is not yet born, arise and grow, which is born, have no decline, and increase forevermore.
So I'd like to make a shout out to our producer, Jason Sanderson. He's been writing these incredible poems about each one of our guests, and you can see them in the show notes. But I'm going to start reading these poems because they are so beautiful and so on point to the characteristics of each one of our guests. And they're just so beautiful. So I'm going to read them at the end of each one of our episodes. And today I'm going to read for you Francesco's poem. In the hush of sacred fires, a monk's steadfast call, Francesco's odyssey as puja flames enthrall. Ancient Tibet's wisdom in his heart would dwell, through trials and health storms, profound stories to tell. A path of the monk, karmic threads did entwine. In Lama's warm embrace, life's battles did decline. In the sanctuary of the heart, where ego took its leave, Francesco's journey in authenticity achieved. In Lama's compassionate presence, souls converse, a testament to spiritual grace's undying flame, Francesco's voyage, an inspiration we acclaim. Wow, such a fascinating conversation with Francesco. He took us from the highest esoteric teachings to the practical, how to apply the Dharma and the inner peace teachings into our everyday life. Loved this conversation and the breadth of experience and really realization that Francesco has. And one of the things that I really love about Francesco, I'm so glad that he ended our conversation with this beautiful singing, because he has a wonderful voice. And some of my most cherished memories of traveling around the world with Lama Gangchen was with Francesco on the buses or in the Jeeps and singing. And he always had this incredible gift to lead these songs. And many of them were mantras, but many of them were the Beatles. And here we were on the bus with people from all around the world. And everybody knows the Beatles songs. And Francesco, being a music historian or music aficionado, also he had a stint doing a DJ too at our Albagnano Healing Meditation Centre many Christmases or New Year's Eves. And so those memories are really incredible, and also just really shows the joy that he has in his heart and that he shares through music. And also just the power of sound, the power of music as a force to heal us and to bring us into our higher self. So I really, really love this conversation with Francesco, and I hope you were inspired as much as I am. So please follow along with us if you're enjoying these conversations. You can follow us on our Facebook page, Life with a Lama Healer. And if you have a question or a story you'd like to share, please go to lamahealer.com. And you can also see all of our episodes there, a place to ask a question or share your story. And you can also, there's links in our description too, if you'd like more information about Lama Gangchen's work, humanitarian work, and then our meditation centers around the world. You can go to nalso.org, and then many other links in our description. So thanks for joining us again. And in the meantime, for next time, be well, be happy, Lama Ken.